Hello and welcome to Raider HQ After Dark. I'm your host Raider, and this video today I'm going to be doing the requested video about BDD claims, benefits delivery at discharge claims. And let me go ahead and share my screen about them, but we'll be going through kind of what the requirements are, how to file it, certain forms for it, but let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. So, BDD claims are a type of claim that is meant for active duty service members who are within a certain time frame window before their discharge. And what happens is that they have to meet certain requirements and file a claim a specific way, and if they do so, it's almost guaranteed that the things that they claim, as long as they have a diagnosis, will become service connected. And why this is important is because, like for active duty members, we're talking about, Army, Navy, Marines. They can have one upon their final discharge. For National Guard and reservists, they can technically, as long as their active duty period is long enough, they can have a BDD claim after every single Title 10 period of service. It's different for reservists in that if their AGR time counts as Title 10 too. So if you're a reservist on AGR and your AGR time is long enough, you can also get BDD claims for that. But National Guard and reservists get the opportunity to have multiple BDD claims, which normal, regular component service members kind of do not unless they have multiple separation periods. Like they go for, a 6 and 2 period, and then they take 3 years break, and then they re-enlist as a prior service member. Then that opportunity they could have up, as many BDDs as they do that. So let me just review here. This for BDDs, you have to meet the requirements. If you don't, your claim will be it will be downgraded to a pre-discharge claim. And if it's downgraded to a pre-discharge claim, we won't work it until after you release from active duty. And you will miss out on the primary benefits of the BDD claim itself. So, in order to meet the requirements for a BDD, you must know the date of your discharge. Approximately. You have to give us a ballpark figure for it. Now, this date can change, and that is okay, but we really, because you can actually exclude yourself from the BDD process if it changes too much, but ideally, what we're looking at is just having a date of discharge. You have to be in this window of 180 days to 90 days when you file your claim. So at the time of filing, you have to be available for examinations 45 days from the date of claim. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, okay? Your chain of command has to agree. You have to keep your chain of command informed about these examinations so you can attend them. Not attending these examinations are the epitome of bad, because you'll basically be shooting yourself in the foot. So within the 180 to 90-day window prior to discharge, these two requirements right here are absolute. Like, they have to be done. You have to, one, submit a copy of your service treatment records to the VA with your claim. You have to. The VA is not going to get them for you because you're still on active duty. We don't have access to the DoD's records while you're still active. The VA only has access to your records after you have discharged. That is why it is on you, the service member at that point in time, to get those records, turn them in with your application. It's highly important. If not, your claim will be downgraded to the pre-discharge claim, and then we'll have to wait and you'll miss out on all the benefits of being a BDD claim. Now, the second thing you have to do is you have to complete a separation health assessment part A. And that actually is this form right here. And what it is it's a self-assessment form. You're basically going to fill all this stuff out. It has to be correct. It has to be accurate. And you also, well, once we get down to race, ethnicity, we don't, that's all stuff we're just checking the box for. But you're listing the current medications, you're listing all of your injuries. You are basically just going down and just checking the box yes for this, okay? Now, from the rater perspective, this form doesn't do anything for me other than to satisfy this requirement. But what it does do is it helps the examiner whenever they're doing your examination, it helps them to be able to determine whether or not you actually have an acute or transitory condition, which means not a permanent disability, or whether or not your condition is chronic enough to where it is a disability for VA purposes and we can grant. So going back to the separation health assessment, where they go over every single body system. So we're talking everything. Oops. There we go. I guess we'll go big. We'll go back. But they talk about hernia. They talk about everything. Now, no matter how small or insignificant the treatment was, please check everything. Just check everything. And it's important because it helps with like everything that you say, like I have pain in my knee. As long as you say that during active duty service, that counts as element 2 for the in-service injury, disease, disorder, diagnosis, event. It satisfies that. So it helps the examiner to know kind of what you're saying, when it happened, so that way they can review it. And we just come down here and it literally just goes through everything. Legs, knees, like anything you got going on here. My suggestion is if you've got multiple conditions, this is not a lot of text room for this right here. I would suggest submitting an additional document summarizing all of your conditions. Like if you have multiple knee conditions, multiple issues, submit correspondence that kind of elaborates on that with this form to the VA. Other than that, just dress right dress. Everything has to be filled out on this. We're going down here. It's a very big form, actually. Like I said, as a rater, I don't look at this, but it is invaluable to present to the examiner because it helps them come to their final determination. And then you have just your signature down there and the date, pretty much standard stuff. So going back here, once we get the claim submission. So let's move on to the claim submission. So you would actually fill out, to file a BDD claim, you would fill out a VA form 21-526EZ. And you can see that right here. Like this is how you can tell what the claim forms are, is they're at the bottom left. And you can get this document at va.gov. So they'll give you the most current document that you can use to file the claim. Now, the difference between filing a BDD claim and a normal claim is honestly checking this box right here. So this box must be checked so you announce your intent to file a BDD claim. You're a little premature. FDC claims, standard claims process, which a fully developed claim just means that, and it's kind of a bad thing, but a fully developed claim means that I can go from you submitted it yesterday to us I can deny it the next day. That's what that means. In rater speak, it means you are giving me permission to deny that within as soon as I can deny it. Not that I would or anything like that, but it's different for standard claims processing. If you check standard claims processing, what that means is not all the evidence is submitted with the claim. So I have to wait 30 days to allow you to submit additional evidence before I could deny your claim. A lot of people really like fully developed claims, and I don't understand why, because the majority of claims trickle evidence in as they go. And you'll find it to where sometimes um, the rater's hands are tied because you might be wanting to send additional evidence, but you check the box for FTC when you should have checked the standard claim process. Not important for the BDD video, but I just wanted to point this out since I'm kind of playing around with the 526EZ. And how you can tell the difference between FTC and standard claim is it's explained up here in the top as to the 30-day window and whatnot. But anyway, back to the BDD. So if you're filing a BDD claim, you've probably never seen this form before. So you would want to fill out, once again, check this box right here, fill in as much of this information as possible. Now, another place that the veterans get, the service members, I should say, at the time, the service members get kind of in trouble at is they'll put their current address of their unit, but they also need to put a temporary address for where they could be as they transition out. The goal of the BDD claim is to get everything done before the service member discharges from the military. However, that is sometimes not the case. Sometimes, due to a plethora of variables, the exams can be done after you discharge from service. Well, what happens is if the vendor or the VHA cannot figure out where you live, they can't do that exam. So you need to make sure that not only are you putting your current address, so that way while in service they can schedule your exams based upon your address, you also need to give them like, hey, look, if I were to leave the VA, this is where I'm likely to go. So that way they can schedule any subsequent exams or any missed exams at that location. Because a lot of people, like they could be stationed in Japan, they're not going to live in Japan when they leave, kind of makes sense. So anyway, so moving down here, the homelessness thing is not going to apply to you because you're currently, a part of the service. So you shouldn't mark yes to this. Some people do, and it's kind of like they say, well, I'm going to be homeless when I'm out, but that's not what this is for. The toxic exposures is relevant for after you discharge, but not relevant for while you're still on active duty. And the reason for that is because everything that you're diagnosed with during this process, as long as the exam happens while you're on active duty, counts as element 1, element 2, and element 3 for direct service connection. And what I mean by that is when the examiner does the exam while you're on active duty, it counts as a current diagnosis for element 1 for direct service connection. BDD claims are only direct service connection. That's all we're granting for with a BDD claim is for direct service connection. Even if you were like, hey, look, my my so-and-so is secondary to my so-and-so. It doesn't matter because it was diagnosed, observed in service, so it counts as a direct condition. Everything's direct. Doesn't matter if it is medically secondary to something else, we will grant it as direct. So keep that in mind. The beauty of a BDD claim is that the DBQ that you file on doesn't need a medical opinion, and everything that you're diagnosed for is service connected because it counts as element 1 as a current diagnosis. It counts as element 2 because the exam happened in service. So the disease, injury, or diagnosis counts for this element. And because you're still on active duty, there's no need for an element 3 because I don't have to prove whether or not your condition happened during service because technically it did. Now, the only exception to this is if on your entrance exams you say like had flat feet. then we would need to do a medical opinion for an aggravation. But that's the only outlier situation in which everything else, as long as your presumption of soundness upon entrance, so as long as your entrance exam showed that you had no pre-existing conditions, everything that's diagnosed will get granted that you claimed. This is why when you claim for a BDD claim, okay, when you're submitting your claim, you're actually going to go and you're going to write everything that you think could be wrong with you, and that way everything can get service connected. If the doctor finds a diagnosis of it, it gets granted. That's the way it is. That's how these work. Now, I'm going to finish out this form. So we don't need the toxic exposures because everything gets granted as direct. And then this portion of the 526EZ is where you write your disabilities. This is where your claim can be as big as you want it to be. And I suggest you make it as big as you can make it. You can claim everything. I've had 103 contention claims for BDD. I don't mind that. They're actually very easy for us to do because there's no research for us to do. It is either granted because they found a diagnosis, or they didn't find a diagnosis and it's denied because of no diagnosis. That's how simple these claims are for us to do. It's so black and white. It requires no research, so it's really hard for people to mess them up. And then this right here for a BDD claim is kind of irrelevant because all of the treatment that you will have received will be in your service treatment records, the same service treatment records that you submitted to us. So there should be no ancillary treatment facilities. Even if there are, my suggestion is include those with your service treatment records, right? Like if you went off base and saw a chiropractor or something like that, get those records, include them when you upload them, so that way they're made into a STR, into a service treatment record. Even though they weren't performed in a military base, they would be counted based upon when the treatment was performed. So that's a little tip and trick on that. Then we go down here. Now, when they say on this, have a known discharge date, you're going to, like, this is where the exit date, that's how you let us know. You let us know right here in question 20A. This is where you give us your proposed or provisional discharge date. So you'll fill out your entry date, you'll fill out your exit date, you'll fill out everything, like, no, you didn't do it. Active duty, entrance date, exit date. Did you serve in a combat zone? Fill this out completely, okay, to the best of your ability. And then you won't, like, if you have severance pay, if you had severance pay, then you'd be doing a med board, and that's a different process. That's a completely different process. It still has some of the same concepts as a BDD, but it is different. So you probably, as a BDD person, would not have this because you're not medically separating. Also, make sure to put your social at the top of each page. Some people forget to do that, and it just kind of mucks things up sometimes. No separation pay. This is important. Okay, so this is how we're going to pay you. What you want to do with this is, when you submit this, you want to include, even though it sometimes says you do not have to and all this other stuff, I want to say best practice is to include a voided check with your submission to the VA. That way, when they're finalizing your claim, they can get your direct deposit established right then and there, and it's a one and done situation. And then you will always sign your form. I don't care if you had a lawyer, attorney, a POA do it for you. 100% of the time, every veteran should sign their form. They should not let the POA sign it because, number one, a POA can't sign this form because it's an original claim. They can't sign original claims. So you shouldn't have anybody else but yourself signing the form. But in the future, it is wildly beneficial to sign every form. The POA can come down here and they can sign the form down here. You should never let them sign for you. And the reason why is because there's a requirement called a 5103 notification. If your POA signs the form, the future form, not this one, because I can't sign this one, but if the POA signs this form, I have to delay your claim by 30 days to send you a 5103 notice and notify you, because you didn't sign the form, that you have the ability to submit additional evidence with your claim. So it's just a best practice to always sign your form no matter who else you have sign it. But you should always sign your form. But in the context of the BDD claim, you have to sign your form. So I know I just kind of rambled there for a little bit. Now, we go back up here and we say, wow, I only have 15 entries, but I have more than 15 things. That's what this last page is for. You would fill out the rest of them through here. You can even make a copy of this page. Like, let's say at 100 things that you wanted to claim. You would just make like 10 copies of this and then just, fill them in as needed. Now, what is the best way to fill in this in the disability, right? You never want to say the word condition, okay? Never use condition. You want to say like depression, started after deployment. Explain related to in-service injuries. Fear, like, or whatever. Like, it could be just whatever it is, so it's whatever it is. And then the approximate dates. Not so important for you because everything that you get granted is going to be service connected, or everything that they find a diagnosis for is going to be service connected. So this stuff is not particularly as important for you, but it's a good habit to get into for future claims if you have to do them. The more information that you can tell me about how, when, where, why, it helps after you've discharged. The claims get exponentially harder to win after a BD, after you've discharged. And after a year from your discharge date, they become even harder. So it's just good to fill these in, lost my dog, whatever. I don't care. But lost my dog, and then, 2025. Now, I will say one thing. If you make the mistake, these dates have to be within your active duty period of time. So if you're National Guard and Reservist, you need to be cautious about the dates you put in there. If you tell me that this thing started before or not during an active duty period of time, you are going to force me to have to go back and question your integrity about that condition. Don't make me do that, please. Please make sure that, number one, your dates are accurate. Like, I'm not saying to lie. I'm just saying that if you accidentally flub on this and you just say like 1997, and I'm like, well, okay, maybe I should flub 1997, and you weren't active duty during 1997, then that's going to make me say that, well, if it started not during this active duty period of time, then it doesn't qualify for the BDD. All right. So that, and we're getting a little farther. So once you filed your claim, what happens is the claims get routed to all regional offices. Okay. So, and then this is just from the Raider side of the fence. What happens after, like, the VSR will get them and they'll order your exams. So maybe like 30 days out, well, maybe about 60 days out. They'll order your exams, give you time to attend them. And then when we get all the exams back, what happens is the claim then gets routed to rating. And then what the rater does is we just review it. Balls and strikes. Do you have a diagnosis? Yes or no? Yes, grant. No, then we don't. Now, if you've claimed something that's not a disability for VA purposes, it's going to get denied. If you've claimed something that's aggravation, that's clearly on your entrance exam, it's going to go back for an aggravation medical opinion. You probably won't have to attend that. It'll be a behind the scenes thing. But what'll happen is we will rate your claim and finish your claim. Now, I usually get BDD claims about a week or so before you're out. And then what happens is once I'm done with your rating, rather than going to the pass through to post to promulgation and authorization, what'll happen is the claim will get routed to the national work queue to a special queue in which it'll sit and it will wait. And what'll happen is once the day after RAD happens, then it'll get sent to an RO to have promulgation and authorization finish it. Because if we finish your claim before your discharge, it's called RAD plus one, release from active duty, the day after your release from active duty. That's whenever your benefits take effect. Because if we paid you for your benefits and for active duty pay, that would be double dipping. So to avoid double dipping, the earliest that your claim will get given to you pretty much, and in a way that is a final determination. Sometimes you can get provisional determinations depending on how you're being discharged, but you can get provisional rating decisions. But once you get your finalized decision, it won't take effect until you're released from active duty, the day after you're released from active duty. And then you'll get it in the mail. You'll be able to probably go onto va.gov and see your rating decisions before you get it in the mail. But that's about it for, oh wow, I'm at 26 minutes. Okay, so that's about it for BDD claims. This is one that people have been asking about. I know it's time sensitive, so I just kind of wanted to put that out there. It's probably not going to be a real, cool video for everybody unless it pertains to you. But I did want to put it out there, so this is about all I've got. Put some comments out there for questions if you have them about the process. But this is just a general overview of BDD claims and how they're done. Anyway, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Do all the YouTube stuffs if you want to. Like, subscribe, thumb up, bell, whatever. And I'll talk to you later. Raider out.